Imagine reading a modern love poem, right? But instead of saying, like, I love you with all my heart, the poet writes, my kidneys yearn for you.
Yeah, that would sound incredibly bizarre to us today.
It really would. But, when you jump into a 3,000-year-old text, like the ancient lyrics of Psalm 16, that is exactly the kind of visceral, messy biology you run into. So, welcome to this custom deep dive. Today we're taking a close, impartial look at the 2025 English Standard Version of this text.
And just to be clear right up front, we aren't here to endorse a theology or, take any religious stance. Our mission is just to explore how we translate ancient concepts of security into modern English.
Exactly, we're just looking at the words. So, checking the footnotes, this text is titled A Mictum of David, which, what does that even mean?
Well, it basically means it was liturgical, so it was used for public worship or set to music. You and I are essentially analyzing ancient sheet music.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at the opening lyrics, like verses 1 through 6, I just don't see anything about feeling safe. The author is talking about a chosen portion and a cup and lines falling in pleasant places. How does that equate to security?
Right, so for an ancient Near Eastern person, security wasn't a feeling, it was literal dirt. I mean, your survival depended entirely on your agricultural yield.
Oh, so holding onto your inherited tribal land was basically everything.
Pretty much. What's fascinating here is that when the author says the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places, they mean literal property lines.
Wait, so it's like a cosmic real estate deed?
Yeah, exactly. It's the ultimate relief of having fertile ground that guarantees you won't starve, and they actually explicitly reject pouring out drink offerings of blood to other gods.
Which I have to ask, were rival groups actually doing that? Like blood rituals?
Oh, absolutely. In neighboring fertility cults, those rituals were super common ways to appease local deities, just to ensure a good harvest. So the author here is rejecting that panic-driven ritual, claiming their surveyed plot of land is all the security they need.
Okay, so their outward security was defined by literal real estate. But here's where it gets really interesting. When we transition inward to emotional security, the translation gets so weird.
It really does.
Because verse 7 says, my heart instructs me. But if you look at the footnotes, the literal Hebrew is actually, my kidneys instruct me. I have to push back on this translation choice. If the original author specifically wrote kidneys, doesn't changing it to heart completely erase the historical context? Aren't the translators just making us comfortable?
I mean, I see why it feels that way, but think of it like localized dubbing in an international movie.
Okay, how so?
Well, if a joke relies on a specific cultural pun that doesn't exist in English, a literal translation just leaves the audience confused. So translators swap it for a different joke that evokes the same reaction.
Right, because for ancient Hebrews, the kidneys, which are, buried deep inside the body, were considered the hidden seat of emotion.
Exactly. They were the center of secret thoughts. Today, we use the heart for that. If we kept kidneys, it would sound absurd to a modern ear and basically ruin the poetic tone.
Yeah, that makes sense as a functional translation. And you actually see a similar trick in verse 9. The text says, my whole being rejoices, but the footnote points out the literal Hebrew is my glory. So how does glory become whole being?
Right. Well, the root concept for glory in Hebrew involves weight or heaviness. And over time, that idea of physical weight evolved into a sense of personal gravity, your significance, or really the core of who you are, your whole being. So they are translating the evolution of a word.
So what does this all mean, like, for you, the listener, trying to digest ancient literature today?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a masterclass in poetic escalation. I mean, it moves from earthly borders and dirt to the internal organs and then past mortality entirely.
Right, because verse 10 talks about not being abandoned to Sheol, and the footnotes say Sheol is just the pit, right? Not a fiery hell, but a shadowy underworld.
Yeah, exactly. The ultimate loss of land, body, and voice. But then verse 11 counters that void by claiming pleasures forevermore at the right hand of the divine.
Which totally flips the ancient perspective on its head.
It really does. Instead of security ending when you lose your physical land and your kidneys shut down, the text dares to imagine an ongoing, eternal presence.
It's a complete journey from the dirt of a surveyed plot to the presence of the divine, and it leaves you with something to really mull over.
Oh, for sure.
If this ancient writer viewed their deepest, most profound inner counsel as literally coming from their kidneys, what modern metaphors do we use today to describe our minds? Like, we say our brains are hardwired. I just wonder how completely ridiculously bizarre that might sound to someone reading our text 3,000 years from now.